is a problem that all of America faces. It is human trafficking. It's a problem that we must face head on. Join me now from Deliver Fund is Jeremy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You guys are a nonprofit intelligence gathering company that's helping fight human trafficking.
Yes, we are.
How big of a problem is that?
It's massive. It's an epidemic. I think that one of the statistics that we quote is from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, that almost 100,000 kids per year they think are going into being trafficked, and the average age of these kids is 12 to 14 years old. So,
okay, how big is this in the state of Texas? Because I heard a stat earlier that we're up the top.
I've seen studies done that were through the University of Texas based on law enforcement data, which is through the governor's office also. Over 300,000 victims in the state of Texas.
So tell me how you guys work with local law enforcement agencies as gathering all this information.
Sure. Well, ultimately it's the job of local law enforcement. Primarily we work with local, state, and federal, but the people who have the most boots on the ground is usually the sheriffs and the local PD. And so we want to get the best resources to them. So we train, we equip, and we advise. And we bring in technology that they've never had access to.
Well, let's talk about the technology. You even go into the banking system, right?
We do. We work with banks, and we're working with, as you saw recently in the news, there's 3 major hotel chains who are being sued by victims because the victims were saying that they were trafficked on these premises, and the hotels were complicit in knowing that. So banks have a liability there. Hotels, other industries, they can't have that kind of illicit activity happening there. So we also serve them and help them root that out.
Okay, coming up later in February is the Super Bowl, and a lot of high-profile events tends to draw attention to human trafficking. I guess, how are you guys working around those big events to try to stop it?
We are doing multiple things. We're working with the law enforcement there on a task force, and then also working with some of the banks around that. So it's multiple pronged approach to crushing that demand that spikes at those events.
Also, I think education is key for young people to know if they're getting into a situation that could potentially be a human trafficking. What's the education process like that?
Well, we predominantly work with the going after the human trafficker piece and working directly with law enforcement. We do some education. There's a lot of organizations out there that talk about this and have awareness. But one of the things that we always try to push is that, you know, kids, parents need to have their head on a swivel. They need to be aware of what's going on, not just down looking at their iPhone. They need to be very proactive in the technology that they're using. Apps, we've had kids who've been trafficked because they were on a gaming app. Wow. And you know, you can talk to anybody on there, and so to be able to know what's going on there, and then also educate the friends, so the friends can say, hey, you know, so-and-so is being caught up in this. Well, that person, if she's a 15-year-old girl, might be pretty naive and not realize that she's being groomed into something, but her friends will and can let the parents know or let an authority know.
All right, we were talking before the show about what the penalty is if you get caught trafficking somebody. Let's talk about that briefly, because I want to make sure the courts follow up with all the work that you guys do. Sure. If you don't prosecute these people, they just go right back on the streets.
Yeah, it's very important to have law enforcement like us working with law enforcement to help build these cases, and then have the prosecutors tied into that as well, so that they know that they have a case that is going to be held up in court, or not held up in court, but be admissible in court. And part of the reason that we've had a 100% success rate with those cases, conviction rate, is because it's based on data versus just a heroin addicted, you know, quote unquote prostitute. So the data is very, very important for that, to give them the ability, but it's important that the law enforcement is working directly with the prosecutors. And then it depends on jurisdiction where, you know, it's very customized to what the penalty will be. For the federal, which a lot of our cases end up going federal, is a minimum of 15 years.
All right, absolutely. How can some of our viewers at home right now help you guys? I know it was on your website. There is a donate button there, but what can people do?
Well, I think once you know about this issue, you can't remain neutral anymore. You're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. So educate yourself, see what's actually happening, you know, set up Google Alerts, and then obviously for us, we're crushing this where we have resources. So we need resources. We're a 501c3. Donate to the website, deliverfund.org. spread the word on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, social media.
There you go. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck.
Appreciate it.
We'll be right back.